Welcome to our Workflow Wednesdays for May. We're glad to have you guys here today joining us on our Workflow Wednesday. We do this every month, first Wednesday of the month. We have a live session where we go over some new topics in Flexi or some new stuff that's coming out in the software. So we wanted to just give you guys a quick preview of some of the new things going on with the Graphtec barcode marks today. So if you guys are interested, we do this every Wednesday. Again, like I mentioned, we have a playlist of previous ones that we've done. So if you want to go to our YouTube channel and check those out, I definitely would. Also, the other thing you can do is get subscribed and it'll notify you when we have new content coming out, like webinars, Workflow Wednesdays, and other things like that. We've got a lot of new content coming out for the next coming months on the new Flexi 21 version. So if you're interested, this is a really great time to get subscribed so you don't miss out on that for any of the new features or things like that. So I will be available here in the chat for another hour after the presentation. So if you guys have any questions, it doesn't have to be about this. It could be about anything Flexi related. And I can answer any of those questions for you. So again, I'll be in the chat or in the comment section for about an hour after the presentation. So if you want to ask any questions, I would do that. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into Flexi and see what we got going on with the new barcode marks. So let's go ahead and share my screen with you here real quick. All right, perfect. So here we've got our Flexi software, and this is Flexi 21. So one of the new things in Flexi 21 is going to be the Graphtec barcode marks. Now, this wasn't necessarily brand new to Flexi 21, but we made the workflow a little bit easier. And so that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today. First of all, we're going to look at, what are some of the advantages of using the new, barcode marks versus just your standard Graphtec marks. And then, how did it work in 19? And then what are some of the new improvements for 21? And then kind of what's the workflow type setup, when you go from print to cut to sending the job out. So first thing we want to take a look at is just the advantages. So first off, the advantages that we're going to have with this type of workflow is going to be ease of use in terms of not mixing up your jobs. The jobs won't get mixed up in Production Manager. It allows you to initiate the cuts right from the cutter instead of initiating the cuts from the PC itself or from the Flexi software, and allows you to do roll to roll, just straight roll cutting, printing and cutting. So you don't ever have to have the cutter stop. It'll automatically go from job to job to job as it reads through the roll. So let's just get the first one out. So the first one is going to be convenience in terms of your workflow and things like that. So one of the things in keeping your jobs organized, one of the things that can happen is if you're in Production Manager at all, you'll sometimes notice that you'll have a ton of jobs pile up here in the Production Manager. And if you're a typical shop, you're probably going to have a lot of jobs listed under your printer and a lot of jobs listed under your cutter. One of the things that this barcode system allows you to do is it ties a unique identifying number to your job with the barcode and the cut job. So what this allows you to do is this allows you to make sure that every time you send this job, it's going to grab the correct cut job, no matter what. So that's going to be one of the really big advantages. The other one is going to be a time saving. Now, this depends on where you are in terms of your office versus your cut center and your printing group. Some people have their designers, or you maybe work in a separate room from your printers because you don't like the smell of the printers and things like that. Or perhaps they're just in a bigger location, like in a shop area. Or even if you work in the same area as your printers and cutters, it's going to be a little bit better on the workflow. How does that work? Well, the reason why that works is these barcodes. So when your typical workflow might look like you send a job, If you're, let's say you're in the other room, you send a job to print, it prints out, you take that job off the printer, you put it on the cutter, and then you go back to your office, and you hit send on the cut job, and then you get a little message that says, hey, from Flexi that says, hey, go ahead and set up the registration marks to make sure that they're correct in their location. So you go to the cutter, you set up the registration, make sure the sensor is right up in that, mark so that it sees it. You go back, you hit OK, and then the mark starts going and your cutter starts reading and things like that. That's really great and all, but this allows you to eliminate all those steps altogether. Once you send the job from production manager, the cut job goes into production manager and sits in the queue. Then you can just print the job, take it off the printer, put it on the cutter, and you can initiate everything from the cutter. So you can just line it up, hit that barcode button, and then it will automatically pull the job right out of production manager. It matches the barcode numbers up and pulls the job automatically over the network, and then it automatically knows which one to pull and just starts cutting. There's no more back and forth between the office and the cut room, or from your seat back to the cutter. I know we have a print shop in our office, and if you're sitting in the other room, that's where our internet connection is at, and our desk, you have to go back and forth, and it's just annoying. So this allows you to eliminate that whole thing altogether. The third thing it's going to allow you to do is that roll printing. So what this has the ability to do is it allows you to, let's say you're printing like 5 or 6 jobs overnight, and they're big jobs, right? So you're sending it overnight, and it's going to take an entire roll or maybe like a partial roll. And so you're just printing job after job after job with these barcode marks. Well, then what this allows you to do is you can actually just grab that roll, stick it on the cutter, and feed it in the opposite direction, and you can have it read the first mark, and it'll read the first barcode, cut the first job, and it'll automatically start searching for another barcode that it might read. And if it finds one within a certain distance, it'll read that barcode, it'll go back to production manager, pull the job that it needs, and cut it. And it'll keep doing that endlessly until all the jobs are cut. So you could print out everything in a roll and then cut everything in a roll. And it's kind of like a self-operating system. So it's really, really nice for large production like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what was it like in 19? What was some of the differences? And just kind of quickly glance over that. We just wanted to show you where it was before, because it might also be that perhaps you use a different printing RIP software, so you still need to be able to get access to these marks instead of through rip and print. So we just want to touch on that briefly. So first of all, we're going to grab a sign. Let's just go ahead and import something in from our signs here. There we go. And let's just do a step and repeat here. That looks good to me, and we'll just kind of fill this in. All right, so we've got a bunch here. Let's go ahead and grab this, and let's put a contour cut on it. So go to Effects, Contour Cut, and let's do 0.125 here. Get it kind of close, and apply. All right, that's good enough. We really doesn't need to be anything special, right? So if before in Flexi 19, we hadn't had the ability to add the registration or the barcode marks in the rip and print quite yet. We were working with Graphtec on that, but it was something we hadn't finished yet. So in 19, you could go to Effects, Contour Cut Mark, and then I would come into my Design Central and just choose whether I wanted the Type 1 or Type 2, or if I wanted the segmented Type 1 or Type 2. In this case, I'm just going to use the standard Graphtec Type 2 marks. And then I'd click Options. If I click Options, then it would bring this barcode window up right here. And then this is how the barcodes would be applied in 19. Again, I would just hit OK, use barcode, hit OK. It shows me the barcode down here. I would apply that. And then I could take this and print it. So I could print it through rip and print. I could print it on a different export as a PDF and then print it somewhere else. And then when I come back, I would use the cut contour option to cut it out. That was the old way of doing it, and it's still possible to do that if you're using another RIP or another printing software. If you're using Flexi, though, we don't have to dig that whole step. That's kind of saves us a little bit of time now. So I'm going to clear the contour cut mark so that we just have the contour cut itself. I'm going to grab everything, go to Rip and Print, and I'm going to go to my contour cut tab here at the top, which is familiar to you guys, and make sure and grab the 9000, which I do. I'm going to grab my Graphtec Type 1. Again, this works with the segmented now or the standard. So I'll grab these. And then I'm just going to click on the options button right here. So I click on options. And now I get the same options right here inside of Rip and Print now. So this makes it a lot easier. We don't have to do it back in that other screen. These will be automatically applied. So let's just look at these settings here briefly and kind of just see what they are, kind of find out what they're all about and kind of what the differences are and what we're doing here. So you have your standard mark thickness, mark length, and margin. These are all settings to help you either reduce the size of the margin of the mark so that you can get more copies in, or they're also to allow you to make the mark thicker or thinner depending on what you need in terms of visibility. Perhaps if you're laminating your jobs before you contour cut it, you might need to use a longer and a thicker line. You can go and do that there. So these are pretty standard settings. You're probably used to these. You've seen these a lot. Now, in order to get these settings here to become active, I need to click on the Use Barcode option. We're just going to click it for now, and we'll go over these settings in a moment. First of all is the color. So in this particular case, it's just black. So this is the standard color for marks. If I want to change the color of the marks, I can click on this, and then I can choose a color specifically, or I've got a few common colors if I want to, or I can use this down here. So pretty easy. Allows me to change the color of the mark. So if I choose red and I click OK, you'll now see, if I zoom in here, my barcode and my marks are now red. So pretty obvious there. It's just pretty nice. So I can change this if I need to. Again, this is for a visibility and things like that. For the most part, standard is going to be black, and that's what 99.9% of use cases will use. It's just if you need it, that's available to you now. So a little more flexibility is all we're doing there. So now vertical, this is the direction of where the mark is located. So if we say vertical, we see that it posts it vertically up on the edge here on the right-hand side. So that's vertical. So it's going to be vertical up on this edge. Now, if we do horizontal, it's going to change that slightly and put it down here on the horizontal edge. So either position will work. It's just probably going to be dependent on which way you want this to be, or whatnot. It just kind of is going to be if you're going to, for example, if you want to rotate the cut job, if your cutter's too small for the size of the print, if you have a bigger printer than you do cutter, you might do that so that when you flip this around, it's in the correct location. So that's what that option is for. Most of the time, though, we're going to set it to vertical. Then that way we have it right along this edge here, because that's your standard position. Now, this option here is a little bit interesting. Again, this is kind of a specific to if you're going to be printing and cutting clear material or on clear, or maybe on a colored or a difficult colored vinyl. So maybe like a red vinyl or whatever. So what this allows you to do is it creates a mask around the object. So then what it does is it makes the color white. So it makes the registration mark white, and then it will print a black, or in this case, another color around it for contrast. So if this is specifically if you're going to be printing on clear media or something like that, you can put a white mark down and then have some black printed around it so that there's a little bit of contrast there and your machine can read it properly. So that's what that's going to be. And then, of course, you can define your mask width and how much area around it you want it to mask off. So this is going to be it kind of gives you another tool to use when printing on different kinds of media and things like that. The other thing that we want to take a look at is what kind of barcode to use. So we've got two options, our standard or our roll media. If we do roll media means that we're going to print multiple jobs in a row and on a roll. So this is going to be where several jobs are going to be lined up in a row, and it's going to print the barcodes on both sides. If you're printing simply one job, you probably will set this to standard, and it'll just print the one register or a set of barcodes right on this corner over here. And of course, this is not the exact barcode look. That's just a representation of what those barcodes are going to look like just in Production Manager here. So just be aware of that. But if we go to roll, this allows us to change several other settings. Now, let's take a look at this. Now, recommended, this is just the image area that it's looking for. Typically, we always want to leave this at recommended. If we change this to maximum, you're going to get a little error message that says, hey, you need to check the cutter. So if I change it to maximum, that is something I also have to adjust on the cutter. That's not necessarily a flexi setting, it's a cutter setting. So most of the time you're going to use recommended, but if you decide to change it, you need to make sure and change it on the cutter first and then come in here and change it here. They have to match, otherwise it can cause some problems. Barcode edges. Now at this point, by default, it's set to both edges. You can, however, though, if for whatever reason, you can change it to front or back only. So I could do rear edge only. It'll only print the barcode on the back edge. If I go back in here and change it to both edges, it allows me to print it on both sides. So here's the nice thing about printing it on both sides, right? Is if I print it on both sides, I can take it out of the cutter, or sorry, the printer, and I can accidentally flip it upside down and it doesn't matter. Because now, because I have a barcode on both sides, the barcodes are actually slightly different. I think they're like one number off or something. And that's okay because it'll find out which barcode number it is, go search for the job in Production Manager, and based on which barcode it read first, it'll actually flip the job for you and cut it correctly. So that's another nice thing about printing the barcodes on both sides, is that no matter which direction it reads it from, it'll automatically rotate the cut job to match the way it's supposed to be. So that's a really nice plus there. Then these are the length of your tick marks for the vertical lines for your barcodes. By default, it's set to long. For visibility, you can make these a little bit longer if you want to, or taller. And basically, we're talking about not the overall length. So we're not talking about how wide they are. It's just how tall these little dashes are for the lines for the barcode. So again, this is for if you're having issues with those getting read properly and it's not reading it because of the media, you can adjust those a little bit to make them a little easier for your machine to read. The last thing here is it just kind of gives you a barcode link info number. This is the barcode number that's going to be printed on the machine or on the printer on the paper. So this will match up with the job. I can also print out some text. So in this case, I just typed up, this is a test. If I hit OK, that'll actually go ahead and show up. And now, again, we're not going to see here a preview of my text, but what's just going to happen is it'll be right below the barcode. So the barcode will be right here, and then right below that, it's going to print the ID number for the barcode, and then it's also going to print the little test text. So just a nice little option there to have for you when you're printing these out. So those are your options for these barcode marks. Now, again, one of the things that you're going to want to do with this is, so where's our workflow, or how does this progress from one thing to another? Well, let's go ahead and just send this job over. So we've applied our registration marks. We've done everything we want to. Maybe we make a couple copies of these. I don't know, something like this. And this is going to be the job that we're sending. I'm going to send hold and list because I don't actually have these devices connected. So I don't want them to do anything. But we're going to send as separate jobs. So it's going to send 2 jobs, and we're going to hit send. All right, so these are going to then pop up in my production manager. And the nice thing is if I have it to send now, the prints, obviously like it normally would, it would just go to print and it would finish printing. The Graphtec is going to have this right here. And you can kind of see here all the information about that job and what's going on there. Then you can also see the barcode link information. So here's your barcode number. And what you do is you're just going to go right to the cutter itself, and you're just going to click on the button for the barcode to read the barcode, put it in position. So typically right below the barcode or right kind of off to the side of it, and then hit read, and it'll find that or look for that barcode and pull this job from Production Manager automatically. So that's kind of the real benefit here, is that it's pulling the job automatically. So the other benefit about this is, like we talked about earlier, doing those roll jobs where you're printing on a roll. You might be printing maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of these copies. Maybe you're doing like 1,000 stickers or something, or you're just doing like 4 or 5 different jobs that take a long time to print them overnight or throughout the day. It doesn't really matter. The nice thing is you don't have to cut those jobs off individually. You can leave them together on the roll. Leave them on the roll, put the roll right on the cutter, stick it on. You have to get it started on the first one. So the first barcode that comes in, you'll get it lined up, tell it, here it is, set it. It'll read the barcode, pull the job from Production Manager, and it'll go through and it'll cut that entire job. Then after that, what it'll do is it'll automatically search for the next barcode. And when it does that, it'll look for it in a certain amount of space. I don't know exactly what that space is, but you want to get those jobs pretty close together so that you're saving media anyways. So it's going to look for a certain amount of distance. It's going to look for another barcode. And as it scans, once it finds it, great. It just reads that barcode, boom, pulls the job from Production Manager, sends that job to cut, and it just keeps going. So it will just keep going until it no longer finds a barcode or until all the jobs have been pulled from Production Manager. And so you can have it just do its own thing as it cuts, and it just keeps pulling jobs from Production Manager. You don't have to keep those jobs organized. You don't have to keep track of them. They're all there. Production Manager knows which ones to pull after communicating with the cutter. So it works really, really well. Now, this is something that the guys with the HP cutters and the Suma cutters have had for a little bit. So this is something that has now come to these Graphtecs, and it's a real game changer in terms of productivity, especially because you don't have to go back and forth, save you a little bit of time, maybe a little effort or annoyance of having to go back to the computer and the cutter, especially depending on if you have like a different office or so. So if you have any questions on this, let me know in the chat. Again, I'm going to be here for another hour or so after the presentation today. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. Put them in the chat or put them in the comments down below. We really encourage you to check out our YouTube channel here in the next coming months. We're going to be introducing a lot of new cool features for Flexi 21. We got jig templates, variable data printing. Flexi 21 has a new 64-bit designer, so it's faster and can handle bigger files. So we're really excited about it. We really hope you guys join us next month for our Workflow Wednesday. And you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.